A 20-year-old National Guard soldier specialist, Sarah Beckstrom, was ambushed near the White House by an Afghan refugee who was brought here, placed here, and funded here by the same system that promised us he was safe. And the response from Trump team says everything.
Bellingham, the city where D.C. sniper John Allen Muhammad once lived, is in the news because another resident is accused of going to Washington, D.C. and shooting people. And this time, the circumstances are also complex.
I know we've definitely done a lot.
Whatcom County has opened its arms to Afghan refugees who fled during Operation Allies Welcome. World Relief of Whatcom County says they are proud to have welcomed nearly 400 Afghan refugees, and multiple churches have also helped with food and housing. In fact, the Washington Department of Social and Health Services says thousands of Afghan refugees sought humanitarian relief in 2022 and hundreds more in the last couple of years. A board member for the group Afghan Advantage, an organization that has worked to empower and educate local refugees, called the shooting allegations heinous, leaving the community heartbroken. Bellingham, the city where D.C. sniper John Allen Muhammad.
Man. You gotta understand the weight of this. This man wasn't a mystery. He wasn't a ghost. He was intentionally imported, assigned housing, given services, and planted inside of an American neighborhood by World Relief Western Washington, an NGO where 75% of the money comes from the taxpayers who never had a say-so in anything. And from that protected comfort, he drove across the country to murder a 20-year-old guardsman standing watch in our own capital. Now, this is not a failure. This is the system functioning exactly how it was designed to during the Biden era years. Now, bring in people first. You ask questions never, and let the consequences fall on families who never made these decisions. But if you think the story is just about vetting, wait until you see how some people reacted to her death, man. When the system breaks, it don't just break institutions. It breaks people.
News, National Guard member just got shot today, and that shit it's a good fucking wake up. So now, y'all know your job title is no longer oppressing people. You can get belt to your ass too. It could be you too. So I hope it's harder for you to sleep at night, and I hope you stand on your motherfucking swivel as you refuse to quit serving this motherfucking dictator whose illegal orders to keep you all in D.C. are unconstitutional anyway. Think about it.
Man, this right here is not political commentary. That's moral decay right there, if you ask me. A young woman in uniform gets ambushed, and instead of empathy, you get celebration. Because in their minds, the Guard isn't serving America. The Guard is serving a dictator. This is the poison you get when leaders spend 4 years portraying law enforcement as the enemy and illegal entry as something noble. But I want you to watch what happens when the other side answers back. Someone finally puts responsibility where it belongs. The moment becomes the line in the sand.
Let me say one more thing, and it's not about this case, it's about vetting in general. The nonsense that the left gave us with this Operation Welcome Allies. Look, there was no vetting. If you think there was vetting, I have a bridge to sell you. If you saw the chaos that was going on at that airport in Kabul, in Afghanistan, it was typical of what was going on in the Biden administration. And the Pentagon, I believe it was Kirby and people in the Biden administration said the Afghan withdrawal that we all know was disastrous was a success. And that's a quote. They called that a success. That chaos is not a success. That is a nightmare. And 13 American servicemen and women were killed at that airport because the Biden administration couldn't get their facts together and couldn't make a decision regarding the rules of engagement to take down a known suicide bomber. So let's stop namby-pambing around with this, oh, he was vetted. There was no vetted. The welcome mat was thrown down. They even admitted that they short-circuited the vetting. What they did was they brought in 90,000 people into this country that were not vetted. They told us all the other immigrants were vetted. What do? Call the FBI in Afghanistan and say, gee, do you have anything on this guy? Did we call Venezuela and say, gee, how about your criminal justice system? What can you tell me about this guy? It's like the 10, 20 million illegals who've been let into this country. We don't know who they are until we suffer the consequences that we have seen in Washington. And I was on that scene, and it is a very sad place. And Sarah Beckstrom and her family did not deserve this. They should have been protected, which is the first order of government. And the left ought to stop their nonsense and recognize that they are not speaking for the American people. They are speaking about ideology and politics. Donald Trump, the president, the attorney general, and myself were interested in the facts, in the prosecution, making people accountable, and rest assured, we will.
You know, Madam
Hero's message is pretty simple. You rush people into the country without checking who they were. You handed them to NGOs who profit off everybody they place, and now an American soldier is dead because of it. That's not random. That's not accidental. That's a policy. Well, that is policy with a body count. And after this moment, the tone of the entire administration shifted, because when every single death reveals a national failure, you got to respond, man. Well, of the previous administration, I should have said, presidents, the leader we elected to handle this mess speaks. I guess I just wasn't too impressed with my segue. I had to make sure I hyped it up. Anyhow, let's get back to the point.
Afghanistan, a hellhole on earth. He was flown in by the Biden administration in September 2021 on those infamous flights that everybody was talking about. Nobody knew who was coming in. Nobody knew anything about it. His status was extended under legislation signed by President Biden, a disastrous president, the worst in the history of our country. This attack underscores the single greatest national security threat facing our nation. The last administration let in 20 million unknown and unvetted foreigners from all over the world, from places that you don't want to even know about. No country can tolerate such a risk to our very survival. An example is Minnesota, where hundreds of thousands of Somalians are ripping off our country and ripping apart that once great state. Billions of dollars are lost, and gangs of Somalians come from a country that doesn't even have a government, no laws, no water, no military, no nothing. As their representatives in our country preach to us about our Constitution and how our country is no good. We're not going to put up with these kind of assaults on law and order by people who shouldn't even be in our country. We must now re-examine every single alien who has entered our country from Afghanistan under Biden, and we must take all necessary measures to ensure the removal of any alien from any country who does not belong here or add benefit to our country. If they can't love our country, we don't want them. America will never bend and never yield in the face of terror. And at the same time, we will not be deterred from the mission these service members were so nobly fulfilling. That is why tonight I can announce that I have directed the Department of War to mobilize an additional 500 troops to help protect our capital city. We will make America totally safe again, and we will bring the perpetrator of this barbaric attack to swift and certain justice if the bullets going in the opposite direction haven't already done that. During this time of the year, when we gather at home with loved ones, these two patriots will.
Trump isn't making a speech. He's issuing an indictment. Sarah's killer walked through a door Biden opened, rather. 20 million people entered during that same window. And a man in charge of border security still hasn't answered for any of it yet. Well, who was in charge at the time? Or a woman, right? Kamala. So Trump does what Washington, I guess, previously refused to do. He assigned the blame and then assigned some consequences. The largest deportation operation in American history isn't about politics. It's about preventing the next Sarah Beckstrom. And if you want to know what consequences actually look like, listen to this architect.
What you heard tonight from President Trump, the breaking news here tonight, is saying that his government is going to accelerate efforts to review every person added to this country over the last 20 years, or the last 4 years, all 20 million. Now, obviously, if you're illegal, you're out automatically. But everybody else who is brought here, refugee, asylum status, whatever status, as he said, if you're not someone who loves this country, if you're not adding benefit to this country, then we're going to send you out of this country. Because it's enough already. No one else has to die. No one else has to be murdered. No one else has to be shot. No more empty seats are needed at the Thanksgiving table or the Christmas table because of what Democrats have done to this country. So tonight we heard from a commander-in-chief a historic announcement, a brave announcement, exactly what America needed to hear, Kellyanne. What you heard tonight from President Trump.
Miller's line is the clearest articulation of the shift. Illegals are out automatically. Everyone else from the last 4 years, gets reviewed. And if you add nothing to this country, we're sending you out. This isn't border security. This is a national audit of 4 years of decisions that were made recklessly, rushed, and without accountability. And the man tasked with uncovering how deep the rock goes, he didn't hold back either, not even a little bit. Here's the blunt truth Washington never wanted to admit.
Suspect granted asylum, and if so, when did that happen? Under which administration? And did authorities miss any signs, either in the asylum process or even back when he reportedly worked for the CIA? If you could talk about that.
Well, you miss all the signs when you do absolutely zero vetting. And that's exactly what happened in this case. When you, in the prior administration, made the decision to allow thousands of people into this country without doing a single piece of background checking or vetting, that's how you miss every single sign. And Secretary Kristi Noem has put out details specifically related to your other questions, so I'll let that speak for themselves.
Granted asylum, and
he said it plainly. You can't miss red flags if you never looked. That's the whole scandal right there. Not a few bad apples, not a mistake, a calculated choice to prioritize optics over security, speed over safety, and politics over American lives. And now, with a guardsman unfortunately dead, the cleanup has begun. Still, some in the media try to twist the narrative one last time. They tried to flip the blame, but it got shut down instantly.
Set with the president believing that the National Guard members should not even have been there if it were not for the executive order.
I don't even want to talk about whether they should have been there. We ought to kiss the ground and thank God that the president said it's time to bring in more law enforcement to make sure that a city that had the fourth highest homicide rate in the country was that violence was quelled. I'm not even going to go there.
A question for Director Patel.
Set with the president.
No, that's right. This is the media's favorite trick. When a violent criminal attacks someone in uniform, blame the person in uniform. But Sarah wasn't in danger because Trump deployed the guard. She was in danger because an unvetted man was flown here, cleared here, housed here, and allowed to move freely across this country. The deployment didn't create the threat. The vetting failure imported it. And that's the part no one can run from anymore. Ever specialist, make sure I put that in front of that. Sarah Beckstrom didn't write the policy that unfortunately took her life. She just put the uniform on. She stood her post and trusted her leaders to keep the threats out of her country. Unfortunately, the prior leader didn't. A death isn't a headline; it's a turning point. From Trump's deportation plan that's already taking place. For the Biden era officials now under scrutiny, and for every NGO getting rich off resettling people they can't vouch for. Gotta make sure I word this correctly. This isn't about immigration anymore, y'all. This is about what it costs when a government stops protecting its own citizens. National Guard hero killed by a refugee. And now Trump is coming for those 20 million illegals. If anything, if you made it to the end of this video, just write the word hero to remember Sarah. Y'all be safe. Go check on a friend today. You can quite literally be saving their life. Peace.